What's good, YouTube family? Was the world flooded twice? I go by the name Pushy Push if you haven't heard of me. Down below is my TikTok, Pushy.Push. Definitely go check that out. Also, drop a like and subscribe right here at Pushy Push on my YouTube. But let's get into this one, family. The mud flood, the Tartarian mud flood, or the worldwide mud flood, has always been an intrigue to me, and mainly because there aren't many books that describe this period of time. I mean, I've seen some things, but there aren't many books like there are books that is written for, say, Egypt. There's tons of books written for Egypt, but this time period right here, this mud flood moment, is a time period that seems to be erased. So something I had to take into consideration. In the past, they burnt a lot of books. I've read a lot of history about the books being burnt, and I've never understood what books were being burned. But as I go through this study, I realized that the information that I'm looking for was probably in those books that was burned. So I find myself left with paintings and a lot of coins that kind of reflect the things that were probably written in that book, so or in the old books. So this is what we're going to be looking at right here. In this in particular picture is a prime example of the mud flood event. So what you have is a giant building right here on the bottom. This is a giant building. Who knows how deep it goes down into the ground? But sitting on top of it is a city. And this in particular city is Seattle. So this is like showing Seattle being built on top of a building or on the roof of a building. And that's pretty interesting right there, because when was this building erected? When was it made? You know, that's a missing history right there. I wanted to zoom in a little bit. You can see the little blue sign right there to the right. It's like a little yellow. It says Seattle Music right there, just to show you that this is Seattle. But the city is sitting on the roof of a building. And I'm asking when or where, or, where's the information on this part of history right here? This other picture's a little grainy, but still it kind of stood out. And this is another example. It's grainy, but what it shows is a building that is deep into the dirt. This is the roof of a building. And then we have cities that's on top of the building. So I have that thought, like, where or when was this time period right here? Totally taken out. And this is why I said, it might have been a lot more to the book burnings. But this is what brought me to an understanding about, was there two flood events? So I'm going to show you this. This illustration right here is what helped me get on the path to understanding that there's quite possibly more than one flood event. This event right here on this page is actually two events it's showing you at the exact same time. So yes, it's showing you a UFO event in 1665, but it's also showing you the Noah event also. So to get into this, those three hands right there, they're represented for both time periods. So they're represented for this mud flood period of the 1500s, and they also represent the time period of Noah. So we're going to look at the symbols of this, the eyes, the name in the sky, the airship in the back. But let's start on the Noah part. So you see those three hands, and you see Noah's Ark. You see the hand going up, and it's offering first fruits. So like, it's willing to sacrifice to appease these beings that are in the sky right here. This is representing the old. So if you look at the eyes on the cup, we're going to look at the eyes on the cup right there. If we switch, this is what is exactly on that last picture. So this destruction, these beings go as far back as Egypt and as far back as Noah itself. If you look at the ship above the eye, the ship itself is what's telling everything. So there's an eyeball inside of the ship, like on the top part of the ship, there is an eye. And if we go back, what you have is eyes on the cup and ships in the back. Now you have to put these pieces together, because they're like a puzzle, and I believe they destroyed all the books. So this is the route that you have to take in order to find out, the things that has happened in the past. But when you look at this right here, the eyes and the ship, this is letting you know that this entity has been around for a long time. The entity that destroyed uh, the world when Noah was alive is the entity that destroyed the world when the Egyptians was in power. And it seems like this entity during the 1500s has also done the same thing. And what's repetitive, it defeats us with water. It seems to me like they have some type of ability to cloak themselves in clouds and manipulate the weather. So you see the hands coming out, and this is showing you that beings, you see the eyes, you see the ship. There is people, other beings in this ship that is manipulating the weather and causing it to change enough to where it floods. And this is the same event for this time period, 1665. The same entities that caused the flood during Noah is the same entities that caused the flood that we now call the mud flood. And if you look at this name in the top, all my TikTok friends in my community has felt like this name is saying Yahweh right here. They say that this is Yahweh's name in the sky. So even if you believe that right there, you have to think that this God right here has caused the world to flood multiple times. Now, I thought there was a Bible verse that spoke about how the world was only going to get flooded once and then it would go through a fire. But that missing history that I'm talking about, where we commonly call it the mud flood, that part right there kind of makes a problem for the things that were written in the Bible, because there's actually two flood situations. You have Noah's, and then you have this situation of the 1500s. So these buildings right here, these are the buildings that are being flooded. This is out of the second flood right here. This is during the 1500s that these places were totally flooded out. And now we are forced to live on top of them because you cannot really erect them all out of the ground. And the factor that they don't want us to know this. Let's go right here. So we'll look at that one more time. Just a good look. That's the spaceship. There's an eye right there. It's been around since the Egyptians, so it's been around since Noah. And this entity with its name, some believe it's Yahweh, is the one that caused the flood for Noah. And what this illustration is saying is that this same God with these ships has caused the world to flood again. Now, I know I said a lot by saying that this entity has caused the world to flood again during the 1500s. So I want to show you how I arrived to that point right there. So what we're going to be looking at is the name in the sky and these airships right here. Like before, we were looking at the eyes and the airship. Now we're going to look at this airship right here and the name in the sky. So we'll go to the next one. This coin is dated 1653. And this is the ship that's in the sky in the last illustration. And what's unique about this ship is it has a name at the top. And we'll look at that name that's at the very top of it. See that name that's at the very top of the ship? It has the very name that's on that etch, that sketch. And that's saying what everybody believed to be the Yahweh name. And this is interesting because whoever this Yahweh is or wherever this God is, it needs a vehicle to transport itself. And the vehicle that it's in cloaks itself, like a cloud and has the ability to manipulate the weather. So you see the name up there. This is how I understood that this ship right here are the ships that we're seeing here because that exact same name right there is on the ship. And if we look close, you see the exact same name. So I'm not forcing the puzzle to connect. It's doing it on its own if you have the right parts. So this ship with that name is right here in the sky. So from this illustration, we're able to actually see what these ships look like. And then you know the name of the being or the beings that's inside of this ship. And what this painting is showing is that this being that's in this ship has flooded the world more than once. Okay. This is like a good example right here of what things look like when these entities was fighting. I guess they were fighting us. And maybe possibly we lived in these type of buildings right here, but this history is totally wiped away. This flood right here, we do not remember. It's been taken from all the history books. And that's why I said earlier, I remember looking through history and seeing how they burnt a lot of books, but I never understood what books they were burning. And it just kind of hit me that this is what they were doing to hide history. But they could not stop everyone. Those who could not write books started printing the story on coins. And this is how I came to this right here. Like, okay, wow. This is showing two events. It's showing the Noah event, and then it's showing the mud flood event, the second event. And then I find a coin that corresponds with that sketch. And you say, well, how? Because it carries the name that's right in the top of the ship. So you can't, say that those puzzles don't go together. You see the name right here. The people at a certain point in time, you know, um, they have the 1500s for this. Everything seems to be in the 1500s. Knew of this God in the sky. This is a man and a woman. This is the exact same name that's on that spaceship. This is the exact same name that's in the sky right here. So the coin is telling you that the people knew of this entity. And this is why I said, well, if the people knew, how did it not make it into any books and widely talked about like the Egyptians were? How did this skip? And that's that point where I say these are the things that they were burning. They were burning history. They were burning archive information. They were burning the things that the people were regularly and commonly talking about. They were erasing the past. So this what makes this stands out is because there's that name. Some call it Yahweh. And there's a male and a female right there pointing their hands up, shaking hands. And it's interesting right there because this shows them in agreement. So now we have to determine, is Yahweh a good or a bad foe? Because you see the people shaking hands right underneath the name in the sky. But nevertheless, you see the name right there. It's the exact name right here on the etch. It's the exact same name right here in the ship right here. So the ship right here, that's the name that's on the coin. So what we have is a flood that's caused by this entity, and it's flooded the world more than once. Here's another picture kind of really stood out to me. there's a lot to conversate on here. So if you get the chance to try to decipher, the right side of the coin, very interesting information on there. But what stood out to me is at the very top on the left, there's that name in the sky with the clouds. You see that? It's the Yahweh name that everybody's on my TikTok is always saying that this is right here. They believe that this is the Yahweh name. And I'm looking at this picture and I'm seeing a man with a trident in his hand, and he's riding on some type of beast. And it made me wonder, is this an image of the Yahweh? Is this the image of the person who is in the ship or whose name is on the ship? So if we go and we look, you see the name up there. So if we go and we look back, you see the name right there. We go on back, you see the name right there, and it's like, what are we looking at right here? This is the exact same name. And this is why I said it started making me understand that you have a hidden event that occurred, and all we have is like pictures, because people tried to cover it up, with all new type of buildings. So of course we're catching on. But every time anybody go on a pass, you cannot find this history right here. And majority of it is written on some type of a coin. That is what I realized. But that is the Yahweh name. And I'm wondering, is this man that's writing on this beast the Yahweh himself? And to be honest with you, he doesn't look nice. It looks like he's here to war with the world, just like what we're seeing right here. So I'm wondering, was these people forced to praise him? You know, Here's another example of a coin that represents two events. So in this coin on the left, it's actually showing a Nuremberg fight in the sky during the 1500s. And the coin is also saying the same entity fighting in the sky was fighting during the time of Babel. So on the right side, this is the back side of the coin, and it's showing Babel. This is what I realized is when they started taking away all the books, people had to write the stories on coins. And this goes against what the Bible say in many ways, because we're not thinking that the God of the old is here destroying the world in the present. So we go back right here. This is two events. This is Noah's event and then an event that happened in the 1600s. And both of them suffer from being flooded. Like the world was being flooded. And that's the only way that this entity can beat us. So this coin right here on the left, I'm going to look deeper at it. There's a sun face in the sky. There's a moon on the right. If you look underneath the moon, there's a plume of smoke. And obviously, there's a force that is fighting a star fort city. So, this city right here underneath the sun is actually a star fort city. But if we go to this next one, this is what we're seeing on the coin during the 1500s right here. So, this is a UFO battle over Germany, during the 1500s. If you look at the face in the sky, it's actually two faces. You have two eyes looking at each other. They share the nose, they share the mouth. So you have these two entities. And down below, there's the plume of smoke and the city. If you look at that plume of smoke down below underneath, that is what you're looking at underneath this moon symbol, is the exact same thing. So this image right here on the left on this coin is this image that we're looking at right now during the 1500s. And essentially, you know, it's saying, it's literally saying that there's two events, that it's possible that this event that is destroying this area could have been the same event that destroyed the Tower of Babel. That is pretty interesting right there. So this coin right here definitely stands out, and it just gives note that on here it says 1631 Lipsia 1631, and it's showing an airship over the same city. And this is what I'm talking about. This thing seemed to have defeated the world a second time, or maybe even a third time. Like, people talk about the world being destroyed at least six times, and the question is, what is the main weapon of choice? We're thinking thermal bombs, but it seems like water is the weapon of choice. So I chose this coin because it still shows an airship during the 1600s. And then when you get on this left side, you get this whole biblical scene right here. I don't know if it's fully biblical because I have a problem with people with wings. I've got other videos where I talk about the DNA being affected. So Yahweh could definitely be this entity whose DNA is definitely different than the average man. But this is what this is all about. There has been an arrival, like the old movie where something has came and this entity has been written out of history. It is not in our history books. This war right here that caused, to me, the mud flood that we talk about. And the only way that you can find it is literally on coins or etched in on something, mainly on coins. So there's definitely going to be a part two to this video right here, because we want to go as deep as we can to understand the name in this ship and the level of technology that seemed to be around at this time right here. Right here is an interesting one. This is Jesus on the cross. But on this 12th century painting, what stood out to me is the two vehicles, one on the back and one on the front. Again, no matter what, you're finding technology or airships. This is placing this as far as 70 AD, like when he died. They're placing airships in the sky right here. So this is the reason why I was saying that these beings that seem to conquer us by flooding the world has been amongst us for some time, because it's in the Jesus etch. And some would say, well, Jesus died and his soul went up. But this right here doesn't look like that. This is somebody who needs a physical machine to leave. And it looks like it's being chased, by something right here. So if you take that story right here, or you take this image of this ship on the left chasing this ship on the right, then we come back and we look at this overall. That is what we're looking at. It's like you're looking at some type of battle that goes back several times. I believe that they've used bombs that comes from it. I believe that they will flood the world. Um, I think that this is a pretty diabolical enemy right here, and it resides in this ship. And my question is, you see the name above this guy, is this the Yahweh? Did the people try to draw what they felt they saw? That's interesting right there. Let's go to this final one right here. This right here is 1588, and this is the reason, one of the reasons why this stood out. Um, all the coins that I showed has the Yahweh name, like, or that name in the sky. This coin doesn't have it, but it has the clouds, or the whole bright light. So the whole shape of it above these people praising, and it made me wonder, or at least think about a Bible verse. Sometimes when you pray, people say in the name of the Father, but they never say the Father's name. It's almost like as if it's been like forbidden. They say in the name of the Father, but they never say his name. And this is what I feel like I'm looking at. I'm looking at some people who praises to the sky, but they're forbidden to say the name. So the name isn't there. But through everything else, you see the name in the airship, you see the name on the sketch at 1665. So from the 1500s, and this is why I said part two, because I can show this event continual. Like it wasn't just Europe, it hit America just as well. It hit all the other countries. And they've managed to hide this part of the history from us right here. This is what they hid. They hid a second flood, or maybe a third flood, because again, I can show you. Let's go back. Let's go back right here. I can show you this entity with the Egyptians. So the Egyptian pyramids are destroyed. And that made me wonder, like, okay, the painting or the etch, it's the sketch is showing Noah's Ark. So that was before the Egyptian. Noah was before the Egyptian. So we're talking about an event where the world got destroyed. They're saying that this entity did it. And when you look at the eyes and then the ships and you make connections, you realize that that same thing was in the world again, running the world with everybody praising it. And it seems when the world stopped praising it, it destroyed it. So then now the Egyptians are taken care of, possibly from a flood event also. Now we get up to the last era before ours. And this then happened again to where, it seems like the people stopped praising it during that 1500 spans, and this entity got mad. Maybe this is the jealous God. It got mad and it flooded the world up, possibly even a third time. So I'm open for a third, but I'm saying at least two. And they put this entity's name in the ship, and they're showing the clouds coming from it, letting you know that it has the ability to cloak and manipulate weather. And that is what you're looking at here. An entity that's in a ship that can manipulate weather and has been doing that. The only way that you can defeat us is if you flood us. And that's why we get down to this point where everybody knows it. And now, quite possibly, we are praising this Yahweh, or whoever this God is, this nameless God. But in the 1500s, 1600s, they knew who this entity was. By the time that is get to the Bible, they have written that name out. And they've also made the destructor of the world look like a God in a cloud, an angry God in a cloud, when it's showing it's quite possibly a bunch of people in airships with the ability to cloak itself, causing the world to flood, maybe because we won't praise them the way that they want to. So I know that was another crazy one. I'm always good for a crazy one right there, family. Um, there will be a part two to this. This is just kind of like my introduction into this two flood situation. So I do got some more coins. I have this thought: if all the books in the world was destroyed, could coins speak like a book? Like, could you gather enough coins to where their comparents will begin to show an event starting to happen? So my next video is going to try to show that. I'm going to show a series of coins that's going to pretty much explain exactly what I just showed here. Again, I believe they burnt all the books. They burnt this history right here. This might have been the reason for why they burnt it. They did not want our generation to know about how the last paradigm. We don't know that last paradigm. We know Egyptian paradigm. We know Noah's moment of paradigm. We do not know this last paradigm right here. So just to hit it all the way back right here, We do not know this paradigm. This is a full city on the roof of a building right here. And this is Seattle on the roof of a building right here. This paradigm has been taken from us. So definitely drop a like, subscribe, family, and to the next one. There will be a part 2. And definitely thank you for watching.